Alright, so what is up guys? In this session we're going to be understanding about few functions in the math library. So here I've written two questions, which is what a math library or what are the math functions that we're going to be discussing in today's video, and where do we use those functions in our script, or where can we use these functions in the game. So basically the first question is, what is math library? So basically math library, it consists of several functions such as math.py, math.random, math.round, math.floor, and etc. So you can use these functions to implement mathematics or some kind of an equation into your game. So if your game has like some kind of a projectile motion, or a player is throwing an object and you want some kind of a realistic physics happening for that thrown object, then we're going to be using math library or the math functions. And in order to explain these math functions, I'll be writing a really small script and compiling it so you guys can understand. Alright, so as you guys can see, I've written a really small code snippet which involves a lot of print statements followed by the math function. And as you can see, the first one is math.random 1, 100. So these values, these are called arguments, and these are the arguments that we are passing into the function called math.random. And basically what math.random gives is, it gives a random value from the minimum value and the maximum. The minimum value is 1, maximum is 100. As you can see in the output of the console, we can see 6. Oh, my bad, it's 83. Yeah, so 83 is a random value that they have returned and it's showing in the output. Next one is math.round 10.5. basically it just rounds the value how we normally round it off. So basically if the number after the point is greater than equals to 5, then it will round up, but if it's less than 5, it will round down. And here you can see math.floor 5.3. What math.floor does is that it rounds down. Even if I put the value as, let's say, 6, which is greater than 5, and if we do math.round for 5.6, it should give us 6, but since we are doing math.floor, it gives us 5. So basically what math.floor does, it rounds down, and math.ceil is the opposite of math.floor, which is it rounds up. You can think it of the ceiling. The ceiling is always above you, so that's why it rounds up. That's how I think you guys can remember. And the floor is always below you, which is like you're standing on the floor, so that's why it rounds down. So math.floor rounds down, math.ceil rounds up. Math.max is basically it returns the maximum value between a minimum and a maximum. So this function or this library function, it's used for comparing two variables. So the next one is math.min, is the opposite of max, which is it returns the smallest value, and you can see in the output it returns 100 because 100 is less than 250. Math.sqrt, sqrt stands for square root. It's a short form. So square root of 25 is 5. That's why it gives 5. And math.py is basically the value of pi, 3.14, etc. 3.14159265, whatever. And the other one is math.sin. If you guys are dealing with degrees, radians, or something which has angles, or like a projectile motion, or something which is like it's bending from a straight line, that's why we use degrees. And if you're using degrees or radians, we obviously have to use sine, cos, tan, and etc. So what sine does is that, as you can see, I'm hovering my cursor here and it says returns the sine of x assumed to be in radians. So if you guys have learned in your school or your college that sine, tan, cos, they have a specific graph. So depending on the variation or the type of graph for the constant or the function, we can make certain projectile motions in that way. Depending on the graph, we can use it to determine the direction or the way the projectile motion happens. It's not only for projectile motions, it can be used for cars, where it's like moving the wheels, which is left. So if we press D on the keyboard, the wheels have to go right. So in order for the wheels to go right, we need to obviously use sine, cos, tan. So either one of these, I'm not sure which one, but if you guys keep using these functions, you will eventually get to know which one we use for which circumstance. So the next one I've written here is math.sin, math.degree 60. So as you can see here, pay close attention that I'll put math.degree inside of math.sin. So basically what that means is that if you see in the previous line, it says math.sin 60. So this 60 is actually given in radians. So if you come, if you're studying about angles or like the values which are given for the angles, those angles can be of two types, namely radians and degrees. Degrees are those which are like commonly used or commonly known, or It's the ones which you study in college or school. Radians are like you don't really pay attention to it. So degrees, so if you want like 60 degrees to be converted in sine, what we have to do is math.degree 60. We have to put this inside of the function math.sin, because if we don't put math.degree, the Roblox Studio will understand that 60, this 60 as radians. And radians and degrees are totally different things. So as you can see here in the output that I think is this one, yes, 0.74 and minus 0.3. So this minus 0.3 is for math.sin 60, 0.74 is for math.degree, which is a lot of variation. So kindly pay attention to that. And the next one is math.degree 1.047. Basically it converts this radians into degree form, and that's why it says 59.9, approximately 60. So that was it about today's video. Oh, I forgot about this. Where do we use this? As I've mentioned earlier, we use this for projectile motions or some kind of angles, or wherever we need to make realistic physics, if you get what I'm trying to say. So like if you're trying to construct or build a car or script a car, and if the player clicks D or A, the tires have to move right or left, and in order to move the tires left or right, we can't just change the values from like, in the script, changing the position or the angles. In order to change the angles and make it look really smooth, we need to use the math functions, especially the sine, cos, tan, and whatsoever. So in order to use a cos, tan is the same as sine. You can even put math.degree inside of that. And there's another thing called as math.rad. Basically it changes the inside thing. So this inside thing becomes degrees, and it changes that to radians. And again, that will change the values in the output or in your game. So if you guys have any doubts, queries, questions, or whatsoever, kindly comment down. Till then, stay safe. Bye bye.